la miente. My favorite subject, the main component of this podcast in English and in French. African billionaires. I did an episode, miente, the beginning of this podcast, probably in March or in April. I don't remember, but I would put the link of the podcast comparing Elon Musk to my dad, Fotso Victor, the gentleman I keep trying to force you guys who are listening to me to care about. Fotso Victor, African billionaire, born around 1926 in Banjul in the western region of Cameroon. I alluded to the episode in a small segment of a French episode of my podcast, and some people, the trolls on social media went nuts. Those were Cameroonians going nuts. Oh, there's no comparison. Not in favor of their, of a fellow Cameroonian, but in favor of Elon Musk. Basically saying, oh, your dad, who was he? This belittling of the African by other Africans, of the Cameroonian by other Cameroonians. This refusal to even acknowledge that Fotso Victor could be compared to Elon Musk. The point that I was trying to make was that it is very, very difficult to be an African billionaire. I'm not even talking about how you get there, but I'm talking about once you get there, once you get on top, once you achieve this amount of wealth as an African man, as an African person, once you achieve that amount of wealth as an African person, how do you keep it? How do you avoid the trap? How do you avoid the predation, which is not only ferocious, but is inescapable? No, it is the case for all billionaires, whether they are from Europe, Asia, Latin America. Once you get on top, once you have that amount of wealth, of course, the state, other people are going to come for you because people know that you have money. Even when you're discreet, it's very, very hard nowadays with social media to be a billionaire and to be undercover. So in this episode, going back to that comparison between Elon Musk and Fotso Victor, the question that I ask is how to be an African billionaire. Elon Musk said goodbye to the Trump administration on Friday at the White House during a press conference. And he was asked a question about this very, very good New York Times report about 2020 when he was campaigning for Trump. And the report says that he was going through family drama and drugs. Reading the report, listening to the authors on one of the New York Times podcast, and I was like, that's amazing. That's amazing. Elon Musk, drugs, ketamine, depression, having all these kids. People are worried about him. Even the author was talking about their report, because I think she did it with another reporter. She was still respecting what Elon Musk has done, saying he's managing 6 companies while saying that he's having kids with all these women, ecstasy, miente, campaigning for Trump. And I kept thinking about my dad. I kept thinking about Fotso Victor. I kept thinking about the way not only Cameroonians and Africans, but everybody's just piecing on what he has done by talking about his personal life and sometimes his politics. This journalist was, even when she was talking about the very, very troubling stuff about Elon Musk, was always respectful. She was critical, but with distance, with respecting. I kept wondering, why is it that with Fotso Victor, there's this wall, this smell, where people are like, people start by questioning the how he got there. Then they question the how he stayed there. And then the cherry on top, which becomes the whole cake, is his private life. They don't do that to Elon Musk. So the question of this episode is how to be an African billionaire. What I keep on saying with everything that I tell you about Fotso Victor is that it was impossible for him not to fall. He was too big not to fall. You know why, I mean? He couldn't hide certain aspect, certain parts of his Africanity, of his Africanness. He couldn't. Mo Ibrahim, London, tying himself to the world and doing all type of things to show that, no, I'm very modern. Fotso Victor, my dad, couldn't do that. It was a question of when. He was born around 1926. He couldn't read, he couldn't write. He was a traditional African man. On the contrary to Elon Musk, who's having those kids with all of these women without even having a relationship with them. My dad married most of the women he had kids with. So it wasn't just a fun, irresponsible act. It was very, very structured. You can't disagree with that type of lifestyle. But it was very, very structured. It was very, very organized. So you look at Dangote, Tony Elumulu, they can appear to be westernized. They got the fact that they had to do politics everywhere. My dad got that too. But the window dressing is better. They are modern. They can blend. My dad could blend too, but still not as well as those guys because no European education. Born around 1926. So how was it supposed to act? Elon Musk got the fact that he had to become an American and he had to become European. Can you imagine an African billionaire acting like Elon Musk is acting and still be respected? People are criticizing him now, but that's mostly because of his politics. And still, he has been able to become the wealthiest man in the world and to have political power. The point here is not to just hit on Elon Musk, but to compare, to say the billionaire status is still seen as non-African if you are able to get there as an African. There's the suspicion that you can't be anything other than a crook and that you're playing the system when they all are. Bernard Arnault, Bolloré, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, even, now that he has become a philanthropist, William Buffett. But if you say Fotso Victor, people, they're going to Google, they're going to talk about the wives, they're going to talk about all type of, excuse my French, shit to basically not have to do what the New York Times did with Elon Musk. No serious analysis of his life and of what has happened to him and of what is happening now. Nothing serious. If you ask those journalists from the New York Times, Fotso Victor? No, but it's not interesting. So what? Who cares? Who cares? Never mind that most of what went wrong away from Africa. Yeah, the seeds were in Cameroon, but he dies at the American Hospital of Paris. There's a wealth manager in Geneva who managed his fortune, his wealth for over 30 years. Was basically saying now there's nothing left. Nobody's asking any questions. It just disappeared. And there's this silence that makes you wonder how to be an African billionaire. Fotso Victor was too big not to fall. Who was going to catch him? Everybody wanted him to fall, to be able to just grab whatever they could. I'm not just talking about Cameroon. Ignore the Cameroon part. My dad had businesses outside of Cameroon, France, all over Europe, Asia. Poof, it's just gone. People are going to say, yeah, but family drama. Sure. But even the title of the article of the New York Times was about Elon Musk drama. Can you imagine if there were a family drama in the family of any other billionaire? I'm going to use the word white billionaire. Wouldn't that make the cover of a few newspapers? Don't you think? Don't you think people find a way to be interested because we're talking about a billionaire and somebody who has a lot of people working for him in many countries around the world? Wouldn't people care about what happened and wonder, oh my God, what is wrong here? What is wrong here? Nobody is talking about what happened with this guy. Even though the French knew that things were going wrong. His daughter called the police. At the end of his life, he had to be in Paris most of the time. I asked the French to put some safeguard there. Nothing was done. Because even when you are an African billionaire, you're still just an African. You're still just a barbarian. To use the expression of the French minister, Bruno Retailleau. How to be an African billionaire and not to end like Fotso Victor? You have to be like Elon Musk. You have to basically align yourself with people who are outside of Africa who can help if something happens. How? If you get into politics, people are like, all of those cameras, oh my God, no, corruption and everything else. How? Guys, I'm asking, this is a serious question. How to be an African billionaire? If you guys think that I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, write to me and say, it's your dad's fault. He should have followed this example. Write to me a serious, even in the comments, something serious that doesn't say just Fotso Victor shouldn't have been African. Tell me, the question isn't how to be a billionaire. The question is how to be an African billionaire. Tell me. Seriously, it's a serious question. How? What was he supposed to do when it was obvious that people were just expecting him, waiting for him to fall, knowing that it was going to be too messy, too African for people to do what the New York Times did with Elon Musk? To be clear, I am not asking for people to agree with the way I tell the story. I am not asking for anybody to tell the story of my dad the way I am telling it to you. I'm just asking why nobody is telling the story and why people are using my dad, Fotso Victor, Africanness, and his private life to just shut it up and not to care and to basically poof, put it there and say, we don't care. It's sad. But barbarians, what can we do? What should we care? It doesn't matter. But Elon Musk, Mo Ibrahim, London, does stuff all over the place. Goes to Davos, those type of thing. Very, very much mindful of the fact that his Africanness needs to be whitewashed. Tony Nimelu, Dangote, look at their background. Very, very well educated, especially in the case of Tony Nimelu, I think. Bankers, all those type of thing. Then think of Victor Fotso. He comes from the bottom, never learns to read or to write. Yet, he becomes a billionaire. And if you're watching this video, you probably haven't heard of him. And if you Google his name, you're gonna see wives, kids, but nobody's gonna talk to you about this story and about why you're just reading about what you're reading when nobody credible can tell you about what happened to him and why I, his daughter, member of the Washington, D.C. bar, is doing a podcast in English and in French to say what happened to my dad and to me because of my Africanness and because of my disability wasn't just sad, African, tragic. It was criminal. So, Miente, how to be an African billionaire. Close your eyes and imagine Elon Musk as a black South African. Do you think he would be the wealthiest man in the world? Do you think he would be allowed to be on all of those drugs and to keep, to be a part of the Trump administration for a while, even not officially, to have all that power? What do you think the New York Times would have written if Elon Musk had been an African who can't hide his Africanness? Oh my God. Even the tone of the article, his friends are worried about him. But if you ask the New York Times, Fotso Victor, no, you don't understand. It's Cameroon. Too many questions about this. The wives, the kids. It's too complicated. When it comes to African folks, it's always strange. It's always, it's not in a plus. It's not interesting. It's African. It smells bad. Barbarians. That was what I wanted to talk about, Miente. But yeah, how to be an African millionaire. It's very, very difficult to get there. But once you're there, and if you can find a way to just make your Africanness less exotic, your chances to end up like Fotso Victor are very, very high, extremely high. Fotso Victor was too big not to fall. And Miente to still say what happened here. It's not just a sad story. It's a criminal story. Not even an African or Cameroonian criminal story. An international criminal story. Scandal. It's a scandal. And I will keep on telling you this story until somebody listens and does the JOB and says, nothing to see here. Christelle Nadia Fotso is wrong when she says that what happened to her dad and to herself is illegal. Miente, thank you for watching this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you Thursday for another episode. On reste ensemble.